Hyrum Smith at Dartmouth College and its Arminian influence on the Smith family. Arminianism at Dartmouth and its influence on Hyrum Smith and the Smith family. Richard K. Barron's The John Whitmer Historical Association Journal, Volume 26, 2006, p. 166 to 184, 19 pages. You can read this article as part of JSTOR's collection of over 12 million scholarly articles. Members of the family of the prophet Joseph Smith, who were an integral part of this community from 1771 to 1817, and the later Mormon doctrine and community that emerged under the leadership of Joseph Smith. I develop a plausible view of Joseph Smith from the perspective of his brother Hyrum Smith. The early Dartmouth community established in the 1770s and its expanding curriculum until 1815 provided a unique vantage point from which Hyrum, who entered the Dartmouth community in 1811 and left in 1816, could observe and participate in Mormon teachings and community development. Dartmouth's definition of community and curriculum is soon followed by later prophecy of Mormon doctrine and community. Dartmouth's early intellectual inquiry focused on the philosophical and theological questions that challenged America as it emerged from New England Puritanism to meet the challenges of the Enlightenment. The prophet Joseph Smith later systematically answered many of these same questions. The efforts of Dartmouth founder Eleazar Wheelock and his son John Wheelock, who succeeded him in 1800, to build Dartmouth's community and curriculum ended chaotically in the campus political crisis of 1811 to 1810. The crisis was finally resolved with the case of Dartmouth College. John Smith was born on December 21, 1752 in Rowley, Massachusetts to Joseph Smith and Elizabeth Palmer, both cousins of grandparents Asael Smith and Mary Duty, by the prophet Joseph Smith. As Mary Duty grew up in Rowley, where her family had lived for generations before her marriage to Asael and subsequent move to nearby Ipswich in 1767, it is fairly certain that she knew her mother's cousin Elizabeth, John's mother. But John was sent to Dummer Academy in Byfield, near Topsfield and Rowley, Massachusetts, shortly after his parents died when he was a small boy. At Dummer Academy, America's first boarding school, John soon excelled in Greek and Latin under the classicist Samuel Moody, twice reading Homer's Iliad and Odyssey and the minor Greek poets in Greek and Cicero and the minor Roman poets in Latin. Samuel Moody, a friend of the royal governor of New Hampshire John Wentworth, was invited to join the governor's entourage and attend Dartmouth's first graduation in 1771, the same year Joseph Smith Sr. was born to Asael Smith and Mary Duty in Topsfield, Massachusetts. Moody asked John Smith, who was due to arrive at Yale in the fall, to join him. John was fascinated by the desert environment of the college, and Eleazar Wheelock was very impressed and invited John to stay in elementary school. John soon studied the Hebrew and ancient texts, graduating in 1773. From 1774 to 1778, John was appointed teacher of ancient languages and studied divinity under Eleazar Wheelock. In 1778, he was appointed the first professor of Dartmouth. John and instructor Bezaleel Woodward helped keep the college going while instructors Sylvanus Ripley and John Wheelock served in the Revolutionary Army. Later that year, John Smith also prepared lectures on natural philosophy for Bezaleel Woodward, who taught mathematics, served as university treasurer, and participated in local politics. Shortly thereafter, John developed an ancient language course that initially included Latin, Greek, Hebrew, Chaldean, Syriac, Assyrian, and later Arabic and Coptic Egyptian. He was also pastor of University Church from 1780 to 1787 with Sylvanus Ripley until Ripley's death in a sleigh accident in February 1787, and then sole pastor until his death in 1809. In 1787 he began to draft theological lectures, which were finally finished in 1804. A year before the birth of the prophet Joseph Smith in Sharon, Vermont, and John prepared them for publication in 1809, when he died. He also wrote plays for Dartmouth, which were intended to break the monotony of the teaching method. His Hebrew grammar, which was rejected for publication in 1773 because of his young age, was finally published in Boston in 1804, and soon after his Latin grammar. His Greek grammar was in the final stages of publication when he died in 1809. Summary and conclusions. Dartmouth College has had a major impact on the LDS Church in both direct and indirect ways. The Dartmouth College case saved Dartmouth College and set the legal precedent for keeping the LDS Church in Nauvoo long enough to grow to critical mass. Dartmouth Medical School was instrumental in saving Joseph Smith's leg. Hyrum's education in Moore's School gave the uneducated Joseph a teacher. Hyrum's exposure to Dartmouth theology, cosmology, ancient linguistics, architecture, Ethan Smith's son Lyndon, and Solomon Spaulding's nephew James Spaulding of Sharon, Vermont, who was in medical school, all provided conversational material to guide Joseph during his long recovery. An operation that kept Joseph at home on crutches until the Smith family arrived in Palmyra. The further development of Mormon doctrine so closely parallels the Dartmouth lectures that it is hard not to notice their stimulating potential. Perhaps these conversations caused Joseph Smith, in his 12th year, to be troubled about his soul shortly after the Smith family arrived in Palmyra and the first vision a few years later. The rest we know is Mormon history. Of